as we All right, I'll start over. So, welcome again to our TOC event, and we are starting. I want to just start off by asking everyone, type in chat if you attended this year's annual institute, which was last week. Just type yes in chat if you attended this year's AI. Hopefully, you are still buzzing, still excited, still getting that energy from last week's event. I see quite a few saying yes. I see a few no's. It is okay. Yes, Gary attended and presented. Sorry, I missed your session, Gary. I heard it was amazing. All right. So let me just say, we want to thank you, who all those who attended, and our partners for contributing to an outstanding experience. I was not able to attend, but I heard it was amazing and I was getting buzzes here and there from people who were there. So I am really, really thankful for it takes a village to put on an event such as that. And that includes the participants. So thank you for attending and thank you to our partners. I also want to congratulate our award winners for your dedication and service in creating centers of excellence within government. We also want to acknowledge those organizations who submitted nominations. We're really excited about the exemplary work that you all are doing and you've implemented and are sharing with us. So it's our goal to find ways to put a spotlight on the work that you're doing so others can benefit from it, can model it for their organization. So thank you. Gary said, who are those good looking people? That's the award winners and you. All right. So save the date for next year's annual institute. It is going to be in Philly again. So if you missed it this year, there's always next year. So keep an eye out for information about registration. It'll be coming out soon. And in the meantime, mark your calendars for next year's annual institute. We are already getting ready and gearing up for it. So please stay tuned. And this is our mission. This is why we exist. We exist for you. Our goal is to provide you with lots of opportunities to network and create a community of learning and development practitioners, opportunities to build and strengthen and sharpen your skills with a number of learning opportunities and experiences. We are always adding to give you more value and also opportunities to add to your toolkit with some learning resources and tools and experiences to build your community. Our vision is to provide a community of learning and development practitioners and leaders to connect, learn, share, and grow with us. So this is our vision. And we formatted our programs for this year around 4 Ds. So the first D is to discover with webinars. The webinars are intended to expand your knowledge about trending topics in L&D, learning and development competencies. The second D is discuss, which is why we're here today, to discuss and share best practices, tools, and techniques. And the third and the fourth D's are our deep dive. And we create space for you to do more skill building with half day workshops that are in person. This year, we've had some phenomenal facilitators who delivered exceptional content. And our last event of this program year is a deep dive. And we are also working on making improvements and adding more content for next year. So we're working on next year's program as we speak, and we'll be announcing the schedule very soon. So, as I mentioned, our last event of the program year is going to be an in person deep dive. Have you ever asked yourself these questions? Let me just ask you, how do we measure learning and development, our contributions to human and business performance? Do you ever ask the question, is there evidence for the impact of the training that we provide? And what are credible facts for learning effectiveness? So I know these can be some difficult questions for us to answer, but they're not impossible. So join us next week, May 14th, at the Graduate School USA, who is our primary programming partner, with Kevin M. Yates, and he is the L&D detective as he solves measurement mysteries. And he's going to walk us through a measurement mystery. So don't miss out. The link is in chat, I see, for you to register. So we hope to see you there for our last in person event of this program year. And without further ado, why are we here today? So, today we have the pleasure of learning about Pathways, a game based approach for team excellence with Alex Suchman. Alex is on a mission to transform workplaces from the inside out, starting with building human-centered, resilient cultures. Her goal is to inspire greater connection and empathy within teams so that they feel inspired and motivated to accomplish great things. As the CEO and co-founder of Barometer XP, Alex creates and facilitates play-based learning experiences that explore self-awareness and lead to meaningful and sustainable change. These facilitated sessions are designed to spark insightful conversations about how team members can better communicate and collaborate towards shared goals. Prior to Barometer XP, Alex founded AIS Collaborations, which is a consulting firm that helps small businesses reach new levels of success through simple systems, stronger organizing techniques, and better planning. Alex's career also includes more than a decade of public health research, public policy, and operations management. She has an MPP from the George Washington University and a BA in psychology from Colby College. She's also a certified project management professional and a DISC coach. So I want to welcome Alex to facilitate today's discussion.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and I'm delighted to be here. And before I jump in, this is going to be very interactive. We're going to play a couple of different games and activities and have a lot of discussion, so be ready to join in. I would just like to hear from you. What do you think about when you hear games for team building? What emotion comes up in you? And I would love for you to bring up to use an emoji on the reactions in the reactions function. I'll share how to find that if you don't know, down at the bottom of your screen. Under reactions there, you can open it up and get a menu of more emojis. So I would love to just see what comes to mind when you think about bringing play and games. Okay, see cool shades, sun. All right, so generally positive, which is a great thing. I see a couple nervous looking faces. Thank you for being honest. I really appreciate that. And that's often the response that I get. I think we've all had some very awkward team building experiences where we did an activity that was maybe well intended but not led in the best way, or people weren't ready for it, and it can really derail what's supposed to be a positive experience. So what my work is about, what my company does, is think about very intentionally, how do you use play and activities and games for very specific outcomes? How do you seamlessly fit it into a broader training or development program so that you're tapping into experiential learning? And so that's a lot of what I'm going to talk about today. We're going to do three things: talking about how play can enhance essential interpersonal skills that are so important in the workplace now, regardless of role, especially as more and more teams are distributed and don't have that serendipity of building relationships by passing someone in the hallway or sitting next to each other. You really need to think about those interpersonal connections. I'm going to share best practices for curating play around very specific team development outcomes and training outcomes. We're going to check out a couple of different games and activities and reflect on how play has been used. Really quick, I just like to set some, I don't like ground rules. I like to use the word touchstones. Please be as fully present as you can. If you're comfortable coming off camera or unmuting yourself to share, it would be great to hear from more people. But I see you guys are not shy about sharing in the chat, so keep that up as well. We will get into a couple breakouts, or one breakout at one point, so you'll be able to discuss in smaller groups. I really want to have an open, dynamic conversation. So again, feel free to share, listen to other people's perspectives. Maybe you'll learn something from each other. That's very much the goal, not just to learn from me. Feel free to share, speak your truth freely, and listen to others and listen to their truth. And I don't have any breaks built in, but if you need to take a break at any point, I will not be offended. Okay, so let's dive in to, I'm going to make the case for why play does belong at work. I think it's a very antiquated notion that work has to be all serious, and that if there's something that brings any fun or joy or laughter, that's a negative, because there's actually very hard research, really well done scientific research that shows that bringing play, bringing moments of shared joy and laughter really engage employees and enhance their performance. There's a direct impact on how motivated they are, how connected they are, how productive that they are. There's a lot of studies out there that show people who feel like they have at least one friend at work stay longer, they perform better, they're more engaged, they exhibit better leadership. So using play is a great way to enhance those connections and create a psychologically safe and positive space for people. But you can actually go a lot deeper. That positive psychology, positive environment is really just the scratching the surface, or the tip of the iceberg, as we like to say. This is our iceberg framework for the different levels of depth for what you can accomplish through play. And often we just think of that team bonding, fostering connections, but also the act of playing gets people thinking creatively. It gets them more curious. It's going to generate, let's say you're kicking off a meeting, or you're kicking off a training with some type of activity. It's a way for people to become mindful and present and separate whatever emotions or thoughts they were having before they came into that meeting, so that they're not carrying that with them and having that derail their focus. You can go deeper than that team bonding and fostering connections with what we call team building. And that's adding a level of very intentional reflection to the experience, to look at how do different people show up, and what are they thinking, and what are they feeling, and why are they showing up that way within that situation. So I'm sure you've all had an example, maybe in your personal life, where you're playing a game with people. And some people find it really fun. Some people find it really tedious. Some people are getting extremely competitive. Others want to be more laid back. Some people take the rules extremely seriously, and other people are like, let's just make it fun. We don't need to do that rule. And we all bring our personalities, our own experiences, our likes and dislikes and fears into every situation that we're in, including when we're playing a game. And so adding that reflective component to look at, what is it about this particular situation, about the particular aspects of this game, this play experience, that's bringing out those characteristics in me? And you get into really interesting conversations about similarities, about differences, about understanding what's going on behind each person's brain, what's going into the levers that makes them show up the way that they do. And those are really excellent insights for how you work together. So what we call team building is bringing this reflective element to better understand your colleagues, the people that you're working with, so that those are better relationships going forward at work. You understand how to work better together. And I'm going to talk more about this later, but this team building works really well when it's paired with things like behavioral assessments to get at different personality traits, get at practicing different types of communication skills, or different project management or process type of skills. So it's a good way to insert some play and activity into training. And then the deepest level of the iceberg, the deepest level that you can accomplish through play, we call team development. And that's where the unit that you're trying to change is not the individual, but the whole. You're trying to bring awareness to how does this group of people work together? How do they function together? And how do you draw change? So what does this group of people need to do better? Is it process improvement? Do they have very different ways of communicating? So messages are getting lost because not everybody is getting all the messages. Is it a different type of leadership or a different type of feedback? So you're looking at broader culture, environmental changes that you can make. And the play becomes a good way to first diagnose or understand what are the needs, and then to practice different solutions and get people comfortable with different solutions. So I'll pause here for a second just to see if there's any questions or thoughts. Please feel free to either put in the chat or unmute yourself.
Alex, I think you have a question from Karen about
Oh,
how.
perfect.
Mm-hmm. Are you able to see it?
Um, Yes. Yeah. So you can do all of this remotely. One of the things I'm going to share today, actually, all of the exercises that we're going to do today can be done both remote or in person. Because it's really important now that so many teams are working in a distributed way. It's important to do that learning and to practice using those skills in that same medium. So hopefully this will answer some of that question, Karen, and then happy to share more at the end. We'll have time for questions. So, thank you. Okay, so most of today I'm going to dive into each one of these 3 layers a little bit deeper, and we'll do an activity. I'll give you an example. So again, this team
A-
bonding. Oh, yeah.
Alex, do you have are you showing slides? Am I missing it?
Oh, are they not showing?
Maybe it's just my screen.
I
Sorry.
see him.
Okay. It's me. Sorry.
Okay.
I
Oh,
apologize.
no, I got a little bit nervous. Excellent. Sorry about that. Okay, so the team bonding tip of our iceberg, and that is not only creating that sense of togetherness, which is really important for team development, of creating that sense of, hey, we're in this together. These are the people that I'm accountable to, and they're accountable to me, and we have this shared investment in our goals. And it also is a good way to get people in that mindset for learning. I'm sure we've all had that experience where you have a training, but you go into it and you're in a bad mood because of whatever just happened before, and you're feeling not very motivated to learn and engage. And so doing something like that like this, excuse me, at the beginning of that learning experience can get people feeling more motivated and engaged. So we're going to do a game called Poetry for Neanderthal. Has anyone heard of this game? Okay. And how it works, we're going to play it 2 different ways. The first way, I'm going to just be describing something, and you're all going to be guessing, and you can put your guesses in the chat. And then for the second round, we're going to go into breakouts, but I will explain that more when we get there. So it's a word guessing game, but the reason it's called Poetry for Neanderthal is you have very, very limited communication tools at your disposal. As in these first few rounds, I, as the poet, can only say 1-syllable words to describe the concept that I'm trying to describe. So there is a word that I'm trying to get you all to guess, and I'm limited to 1-syllable words to describe it. Which is pretty difficult, because once as adults, our vocabulary is more sophisticated than 1-syllable words. So I'm going to start describing a word, and let me open up my chat so I can see your responses. When you think you know what word I'm describing, please pop it in the chat to share your guess. And when someone gets it right, I'll move on to the next word. Are those instructions clear? Perfect. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go to the first word. Okay. Bird, snow, black and white, low. Yes, penguin. Excellent. Okay, this next one, and I should clarify, the word that you're guessing can be multiple syllables. It's just me that can't say that can only say one syllable. Right, here's another one. Chew, pink, stick, blow. Yes, bubblegum. Awesome. We'll do one more. Loud, air, gray sky, crash, rain. Yes, thunderstorm. Awesome. You guys are excellent at this. So you get the hang of it. You have to think of creative ways to explain a concept. So now we're going to do a slightly different twist that everyone is going to get a chance to practice, not only guessing, but also being the poet. So what we're going to do is go into the breakouts. There'll be groups of 4 for 5 minutes. And I want each of you to think of a hobby, something that you like to do for fun. And that is the concept that you are going to be making up a poem of one-syllable words about. And the other people in your group have to guess what it is that you're describing. So you'll, for example, I tap dance. So I might say noise with feet, move legs, jump. And you would guess that. And then once people guess your word, you'll go on to the next person. And once you're finished with that, if you still have some time left, I want you to just reflect on, how does playing this game make you feel? What thoughts are you having? What feelings? What mindset is it putting you in? Being with other people and sharing this information in this way. So does that make sense? The instructions are also in the chat, so you can refer back to them when you go into your groups. Questions, thoughts? Amy, are you ready to go into the groups?
Yep, I just have one person joining, so I want to make sure that I
perfect.
Put them in a breakout room as well. So just take a quick glance at what the instructions were again, and we will go into those breakout rooms for 5 minutes. Ready?
Have fun.
Here we go. You should be able to just go directly into the breakout room. You shouldn't have a pop-up. You should just go right in there. So here we go.
Should pause to say that at that exact moment. Because that's the perfect segue into this next level of team building. And that's where you're bringing more of that reflective element to play, so that you can draw those insights as to, why did people show up the way they do? Why did they find it more competitive or less competitive? Why did they find certain situations more fun or more stressful, or less fun or less stressful? Because those are really helpful things to know about people, especially the people that we're going to work really closely with. So by adding that reflective piece and encouraging people to think first about their own behavior and their own needs and patterns, and then to look at other people's, you're bringing in the experiential learning cycle, which is a really, really powerful learning tool. And it's basically, you have an experience, but the real value comes from reflecting, how do I feel about it? Then thinking, why do I feel that way about it? What was it about this particular experience? What was it about the group of people that I had the experience with? What was it about maybe the mood that I was in coming into that experience? And from there, you're recognizing behavior patterns. Sarah, I love that you just said when you were with the big group of people, it felt competitive, but in the smaller group, it didn't. So maybe for you, when you're with a small group of people and there's a clear shared goal, that puts you in a more connecting mindset and activates the teamwork. And yes, we're in it together. But in a larger group, you feel like maybe the individual has to stand out, and it's harder to get that cohesiveness. I'm just speculating, but that's a really helpful reflection to think about, and to know for yourself, how do you activate your best self when you're working? What do you need to tell your colleagues or your supervisors? or the people that you supervise about why you act or think that the way that you do. And so a really simple exercise like the one we just did can lead to really powerful insights. I'll share an example just from last week. There's a nonprofit in DC that I'm working with, and they have about 25 people that are in the new and middle manager roles. They were promoted from earlier roles, and it's their first time being supervising people, managing programs, having that level of responsibility. And so I'm doing a couple of different workshops with them. And the last one that I did was we used DISC. We did everybody's a very short DISC assessment and looked at where people are on different behaviors. And that alone sparked really excellent conversations about, I tend to be more detailed, or I like to make decisions quickly, or I like working collaboratively and getting input from other people, all of the different spectrums of behaviors. And when they were thinking about it, they said, oh, I can understand how this means it's harder for me to work with people who think differently or people who their pace is different. But then in thinking about how do you apply those insights to how you work, that's a really big step. Knowing that you should do something differently or there's a better way out there is very different than changing your behavior. So bringing in a game and leveraging this experiential learning cycle is a really great way to have people practice applying those insights in real time. So we did a game, and it's actually the next one that we're going to play, that really had people think about how do your own needs show up, and how does knowing that affect your performance, and how do you communicate that to other people? And then how do you adapt your own behavior a little bit so that you're getting the better results from other people, so that you're engaging their excellence as well. So we're going to play, this next game is called Visionary. And if everybody has a paper and pen nearby, that's the only thing that you're going to need for this. And how this works is, in this first round, I will be the visionary. I have a vision. It's a picture that I'll be looking at that's online that I can see, but you cannot see. And I have to describe the picture to you. And as I'm describing it, you're drawing it on your piece of paper with your pen. And it's not about how accurate it is. It's not about how good of a drawer it is, but it's about you listening to the instructions. What's helpful in the instructions for you? What could be more helpful? What do you need to hear when it comes to instructions and expectations in order for you to fully engage and fully perform? So again, I am going to be describing a picture, and you're drawing it as I'm describing it. And then you're thinking about how the instructions are for you. What details were helpful? What details would have made it more helpful? Any questions? Clear enough? Okay, and one small twist is there's a 2-minute timer on the screen. So this is all in 2 minutes. So there's that little bit of added pressure. And so like work, where we have deadlines and there's different constraints, in games and activities, there's all these different ways to add a little bit of a different pressure to see what that brings out in people. Some people might find that they thrive having the timer. They really like that deadline that gives them a sense of purpose and clarity. Some people might find that it freezes them up and they can't really focus. But those are really good things to know about yourself, and really good things to know about the people that you're working closely with. Again, so you can work better together and find ways around it. So I'm going to start the timer and start describing the picture, and we'll see what happens in 2 minutes. Let's just move things around on my screen a little bit. This is where I wish I had 3 screens instead of 2. All right. So I'll give you a very quick high-level overview, and then I'll go into details. It's just a sketch. There's no colors. It's just like black pen marks on a paper, but it's of an owl, and it's an owl from the neck up, and the owl is peeking in from the left side of the screen. So you could just sort of see his neck and head, and he's looking straight forward. So if you want to draw a big round head, the owl's head is just about a circle, and it takes up most of the page, the big circle, and then inside the shape of the head is the shape of the face, and it looks like a heart, except that the bottom of the heart is rounded like a circle. So sort of a heart on the top and a circle on the bottom, and it's pretty big. It takes up most of the space within the head. So the big round head and the heart-shaped face, and then inside of the face are two eyes, two perfectly circular eyes, one under each of the lumps of the heart. And then it has a beak, and the beak is just, it's the letter V. So it's an open upside down triangle that's pointing down. So you have the two round eyes, and then a little bit underneath them and in between is the upside down V for the owl's beak. And it doesn't have feathers or anything, so there's not a lot of detail. You can't really tell what type of owl it is. And then you could see a little bit of the neck that's going towards the left side of the page. Okay, that went by very quickly. So I'll show you. This is the owl. This is the picture that I was describing. And would anybody be brave enough to turn on your camera and show your artwork?
I will, and I did. Our owls are very different, but I will still show you.
Perfect. That's fine. I love that your owls are different.
I started with the vision of what you said we were going to draw, and forgive me. This is let me just show you guys what I did. Okay, that might be the best thing.
Yeah, and if multiple people want to hold them up at the same time, we can see.
Let's see here. Are you guys able to see my screen yet?
Yeah.
Okay, so you can see this little thing, this guy right here. I'll just put my nail on top of it.
Oh no, I can't see your screen. We see you.
Oh, well, I'm awesome, but let me turn this around. Okay, hold on a second. Hold on, where's my little screeny thing at? So I can turn this around. Here we go. Boom. Boom.
Cute. Yeah. Very
okay,
cute.
did you guys see it? Did you guys see it?
Yeah.
Can you see it now?
Very cute.
Okay, because I can't see it, so I don't know what I'm showing you. So
yeah, we saw a little glimpse. Anybody else want to share?
No. Can you see the whole thing now? It's my little owl right there. I have my finger on the button.
No, we can just see your finger.
Oh gosh.
There it is.
Crazy.
There it is. Right here? Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. See some more. Oh, very cute. Yes. These are excellent. Thank you. So now bringing in that reflective piece, that experiential reflection, and would love if you want to unmute yourself and jump in or put in the chat something to think about. How did you feel and what were you thinking as you were doing that? And then again about the details. What details were important to you and what would have made the instructions more helpful to you? Would love to hear your experience. Okay, size first. So the size of what you were drawing within the parameters of the page was helpful. Thanks, Jennifer. What else?
This is Kimberly Harrison. I one aspect that really helped me visualize this is when you said the face was like a heart. So I could relate to that because that was easy. I'm like, okay, I can do a heart. And yeah, a heart. Yep. Now I got the beak wrong, but the heart inside the circle made it easier for me.
Thank you. Some great things in the chat. Patience to wait for more instructions. Yeah, you kind of want to take action. You're aware that time is going, but you don't have all the information. And then listening, having to pay attention. And yeah, David.
I found myself getting a little frustrated, actually. I realized that because I knew there were 2 minutes, I started drawing first. And later on, you said, make the circle as big as the page. And at that point, I was like, darn it, I have to start over. And then I got frustrated because I can't draw and my owl looked more like a sheep. Anyway, it was a great experience and it made me really focus on what you were saying. But I realized I needed to slow down and wait just in case you told us something that would matter to the instructions earlier.
Yeah, and that's a huge insight that comes out for this with groups is there are people who want to take action right away. And then there are people that are like, I need to hear every single detail of what is going to happen before I even lift a finger. And that is a dynamic on a team, something that can cause real conflict between people if they don't understand that it's just a difference in how they need to hear instructions and expectations. So that's a great insight. And I'm sorry that you felt frustrated, but it sounds like it was a valuable learning. Yeah, Sarah.
So again, I jumped straight into competitive mode, wanted to have the fastest owl and the best owl. So I started drawing as soon as I'm blurred, so you probably can't see it. And then
Oh,
I
yeah, there it is.
realized,
Really
oh, I got
cute.
it wrong. So I scribbled this one out, started again. And again, there's no prize. I'm not going to get a t-shirt. So I don't know why I wanted it done the quickest and the best and the soonest. But
Yeah.
it was fun.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And that's an important thing. You know, maybe those are expectations that you have on yourself in other situations too. And you know, maybe that's something that could be helpful to know. You know, when do you need to think about being done first or having the best owl, whatever the sort of owl is the metaphor here. And when is it really just about being engaged or listening and taking something away? Yeah, Cassandra.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to say that typically I like all the instructions, like you mentioned, all the instructions before I get started. But I didn't want to fall behind this time. I was like, oh, this is a group, so I need to go ahead and get started. And that's typically not my behavior, but I did this time because I wanted to be, sure that I didn't miss one step of the way. But it was very fun, very engaging. I
Excellent.
enjoyed it.
Thank you. Brian, and then I'll do Brian and Dina, then we'll move on.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had a little audio video. But my comment was that I was thinking far too deep, thinking that there were multiple layers of meaning. With looking at the drawing behind you or the painting behind you, it made me think that you would be operating on that artist, multiple levels of communication. And so I was waiting for the connection that never came. So that was a little frustrating, but then I realized that I was overthinking it.
Oh, that's fascinating. Thank you, Brian. Thank you so much for sharing that. That's really insightful. Dina.
So what was very funny to me is my owl looks almost like yours, but the whole exercise was not fun at all to me. So, and I couldn't figure out why, but I think part of it was in my mind, I know it's a work game and it's supposed to incite all these things, but I felt like in the first game, and maybe because I love people, in the first game, we were on it. We got in our group. I was like, okay, David, let's do this. You know what I'm saying? And it was exciting. It was fun. And I got his, he got mine. I was like, let's do a second one. This, I was like, we need to move to the next thing. So I don't know if it was because it felt too hard to be a so-called game, but it didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, thank you. And I really appreciate your honesty there. And that brings up a really good point about bringing games into learning is sometimes, especially when you get below that team bonding and the deeper levels where you want learning, sometimes it's not about fun because you're trying to simulate a situation that would happen at work and create a very similar dynamic to see what happens so people can reflect on it. It's really about that experiential learning and getting into that reflective mindset and saying, there's very low stakes here. For most of you, I can't see your owls. I don't know anything about you or who you are or how high your standards for artistic excellence are. That really doesn't matter. But it was just, let's do this experience. I'm going to put a little bit of stress on it. The fact that it was you were drawing a picture. I'm not somebody you're not familiar with my communication styles. And there was this timer.
Yeah.
That's a lot of pressure, especially in a game. But I heard from maybe 8 or 10 of you. I'm sure you all have a lot of really deep and interesting reflections on that. And the activity would have gone differently if any of you had been describing it. There's no right or wrong way, but it's about using play to create an experience that people can reflect on, that you can then draw out. And so, you know, if we were to play this again in this same way, we're actually going to do another round, but it's with a twist on it. But if we were to do this in the same way, you could all give me feedback for how could the instructions have been more helpful for you? And then I can learn how to be a better communicator, and we can do a couple of different rounds, and we can try out, okay, if 2 minutes is too short, what about 3 minutes? What if the first minute no one was drawing and I was just describing and then I went into detail? There's a million different iterations for how we could practice that communication. For me, getting comfortable as the message sender, and for you getting comfortable as the people taking action. You can also play with variations of, can people ask questions? Can people talk to each other? Can you show people your work and give feedback midway? There's a million interpersonal dynamics that you can sprinkle in and create that environment to practice and learn from. So that's using games at that team building level to draw those insights about individual behavior, first your own, and then what you can learn about other people. And I'll pause to see any questions or final insights before we move on.
This is Kimberly again. You mentioned something that I think would have worked maybe better for me. I found it a little hard, like you were providing the instructions, and then I was also simultaneously trying to draw. And in my head, the first thought was, why didn't you just give us the instructions before the clock started? And then that way we would have had 2 minutes to draw. So, you know, it's not a right or wrong thing. It's just an observation, like, wow, you could do this several ways. And it still will come off as a good game, as a good engaging game. So
yeah. And a huge lesson from that is, how do you advocate for yourself? I mean, I'm sure we've all been in a situation where someone's leading a project, or, you know, our supervisor is explaining something and you're like, you know, that they think this makes perfect sense, and to them it's really clear, but this is not working for me. Like, I'm someone, if I hear instructions, I actually need to see them written down, or I need to write them down myself, or it's like they go in my ear and then they just disappear and dissipate, and I'll never see them again. So I've had to learn to say, you know what, if this is something that's really important, can you write it down, or can we at least take the time to make a written record of it? And that's how I can advocate for myself, because if I am going to perform to the standards that I have for myself and to be able to deliver the quality of work, I know that I need that about myself. But maybe I didn't, maybe, you know, we often assume everybody thinks exactly the same way that we do. We don't realize that our perspective is a little bit different, or our needs are a little bit different. And it's always helpful to have that reminder. So thank you. Yeah, Deidre.
I think that this is extremely beneficial with teams, because it does help you to understand how your teammates or team members operate and what their preferences are. And so just by doing this type of an activity, you can tell that, okay, this particular team member needs the instructions written down. So making sure that when you are working on a project, that you have written instructions, that you talk through them, that you allow people the opportunity to practice or do something, do a sample or have an example, and then check in for clarification. So it just helps you not just lean into your own preference, but it helps you to broaden your perspective so that you are incorporating and being inclusive of other people.
Yeah, that's a really great insight. And again, a perfect segue. Wow. So team development, using play and games towards team development, and that's going beyond individuals' needs, and how do you leverage excellence, and how do you get people to understand their own patterns, but how do you use it to get a group of people to work together better, and to improve the interdependence, to make the whole more than the sum of the parts. And I just saw a thing about the reflective questions. If you want, after this, I'll share my email address at the end. And if you email me, I'll send you the deck of slides, so it has all the instructions and reflective questions. If that would be helpful, I'd be happy to share those. Okay. So in team development, you're going to have really specific outcomes that you're looking for. Maybe it's um, fostering a more sense of curiosity, so people ask more questions and become more accountable. Maybe it's balancing different communication styles and deciding on what's the right communication channel for this team, so everybody's on the same page. So with team development, you want to get more specific about the type of game that you're going to play, the type of activity, and what people have to do in it to more closely simulate that dynamic that you're trying to work on. And so every game is some type of problem solving experience. And by the type of problem that people are trying to solve, you're going to tap into different social emotional responses. And so this is just one way to look at what type of experience, what type of thoughts, what type of interactions different games will bring out. So you can pick a game that's going to be more strategically aligned with the outcomes that you're trying to get to. And more of these interpersonal skills are being seen as especially critical. The World Economic Forum last year put out a report, and in the top skills that they're saying are most critical for the 21st century, these are interpersonal, what are often called soft skills. I hate the term soft skills because I think it's really diminishing how important these skills are. But these are all things that people need to perform and to fully engage and to be accountable. And they're not always skills that are worked on. And so play is a really great way to tap into that. And this is another, I know I'm going through a lot fast. I want to get to the activity. But this is a framework that my colleagues and I came up with for matching specific games to specific types of learning outcomes. We call it the pressure matrix, and these different dimensions of team culture and team performance. And so not only is it a way to say, what area of need are we trying to get to? What's the challenge that we're trying to overcome, or what are the skills we're trying to develop? But this is also how we categorize games so that you can match the right game to the right learning outcome. And so just a couple of examples of what some of those dimensions of culture and performance are. So identity and belonging. So if you have a team of people who don't really know each other, or a group that just went through some big change or some big traumatic external event happened, and you want to foster a greater sense of trust and inclusivity, you might want a game that's going to have people share stories, or do something, create something together that they can all be proud of, and that there's a tangible reminder of. If you have a team that's struggling with workload and coordination, you might want a game that's we're going to have a strong collaborative component where they need to practice what tools they use and what strategy and what processes they're going to use. So you can pick a game that aligns with the outcomes that you're trying to get to. So we're going to play that same game, Visionary, but there is a twist. And in this one, most people are going to be observers, and I'll call in a few volunteers. Instead of everybody drawing their own picture, we're going to have 4 people be the drawers that are working together on one picture using the annotate feature in Zoom. So you're coordinating with each other as you're listening to the instructions. So there's a whole new dimension of this challenge. It's not just how you internalize the instructions and what you need, but how you're going to work with other people. And then I'm happy to be the visionary, but if somebody wants to try a chance at being the visionary and describing the image, I'm happy to share the link so somebody else can do that. And then
This
for
is
everybody else,
Lakeisha. I can do that because
Yeah.
I'm a terrible. I'm like a okay drawer, but I think I'm a better explainer.
perfect.
Maybe
Okay,
not.
so I will share a link for you in the chat in just a moment. And are there people who would like to volunteer to be the drawers? No drawer volunteers?
This is
Sarah had a great owl, so she should be a drawer. Sorry, Sarah.
No, that's fine. Again, I struggle to come off mute and find the hand raise, but sure, I'll draw.
Okay, perfect. Sarah, who else?
Kimberly, I'll draw.
Excellent. Kimberly. Yep. 1 or 2 more people.
It's a share a second draw.
Perfect. Sheris and Aricia. Excellent. Okay, so we have 4 drawers. And for the observers, what I want you to think about are, there's a couple questions here. Let me skip ahead and pull these up. So these are what I want the observers, everybody else, to think about. What team dynamics and interpersonal skills are you seeing take place? How are different people approaching the exercise? And what parallels can you see between this game, this activity, and real life work? So even though you're observing, it's an active observer role. All right, for the drawers, do you all know how to use the annotate feature in Zoom? I can go over how to find it.
Negative.
If you go to,
No.
okay,
In whiteboard.
if you go to the top of your screen, you should see a little green box that says you're viewing Alex's screen.
Mhm.
And next to that is a little box that says view options with an arrow. And if you click that arrow, it's going to open up a menu of different Zoom functions. And one of them is called annotate. Have you seen that?
Yes, I see it.
Perfect. And so a little toolbar will open up that has this little pen icon for your drawing pen or marker, and then you can change the color.
I don't see it. I'm so sorry.
You don't see it. Okay. Do you see the green box?
I see a green box that says share.
Look at the top of your screen. It's not in the main Zoom menu.
I see view, but I don't see a green box.
It doesn't say you're viewing Alex's screen.
Nope. Oh, wait. No, I
Um,
see. Well, I see it on your thing.
Yeah,
If
hover
you
your
hover,
mouse up to the top of your screen to get your control bars, and then at the very top you should see the very top of your Zoom. You should see you're viewing Alexandria Suchman's screen.
I do see view, and it says standard side by side, half
Now,
self
keep going
view.
up, out of the actual black or the screen of Zoom. It's at the very top. You should see in the left-hand corner of your monitor, ZM Zoom meeting. And then it's like a gray bar, and then you should see you're viewing Alexandria's screen.
Yeah, I don't. You probably should
No.
pick someone else.
no. Okay. Does anyone else want to try to
Oh,
be
I
a drawer?
found it. Annotate.
Perfect.
Got it.
Perfect. Excellent.
Sorry.
Success. Last minute success. Okay. So it's going to work the same way. There'll be the timer on the screen. There's this big, here's your canvas. But remember, you're working together to bring Lakeisha's vision into the world. So, any questions?
So,
Drawers
so
or
we're
the
all
visionary?
drawing on the same picture, so we need to coordinate with each other.
Yep. You're creating one picture with the
Got it.
4 of you.
Okay.
Yep. And then observers, the questions for you to be thinking about as you're watching, those are in the chat. So you can look at those for reference. All right.
Do I
Everybody
start
ready?
with your, okay, yep, never mind.
Yep. As soon as I click the timer, you can get started.
Okay.
All right, here we go.
Okay, we're gonna draw a tube and we're gonna put circular ridges in it.
Mm.
Because first start with the tube and then draw circles around the tube. Kind of like little lines.
I can draw too.
Okay. And the tube is long and cylindrical. I think that's the right way to say it. Okay. Let's scratch that out and let's start again if we can. So we're going to do a vertical tube and we're going to put lines through it, lines around it.
I think everybody
Yep,
has to clear their drawings.
Yeah, clear your drawings and then we're going
You
to
hit the
go
delete.
vertical.
Yeah,
Yep.
there's a trash can. You have to hit
Yep.
on the side to clear your drawing.
So
There you
let's
go.
start vertical, cylindrical tube.
How about I draw the tube?
Yeah.
All right, I'll draw the circles around it.
There you go.
Yep. Now just put like a little, it's already a cylinder. Circles, that's the number 2. Okay, couple circles. Let's get some circles from top to bottom. Yep, yep, yep. Okay, sounds good. Now, from there, let's do a triangular shape at the top of the tube.
This is Cheryl. I'll draw the triangle shape at
pointing,
the top.
yep, pointing outward. So let's stretch that triangle. So it's going to become a very thin triangle pointing to the left.
To the left. Yeah. That's so we got to delete our one drawing. Oops,
No,
mine
keep your
deleted.
tube. We'll put your tube back.
Well, when you
then
delete,
let's go
the
back to
error. So
yep, and let's go back to the triangle and let's make the triangle. Let's elongate the triangle to the left. So we're going to take that and extend the point to the left.
All right. 2 minutes goes by really fast.
Oh, was that 2 minutes? That couldn't have
it-
been 2 minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
It goes by so fast. But you guys were in it. Everybody was participating. I'll pull up the picture. So this is what we were describing. So
Y'all
she
see, we're
started
going to
with
get
the
there in
tube.
about 2 seconds.
Wow. And now I must apologize because for some reason when I deleted when I went back to select annotate again, my pencil would not populate. So
Oh,
It's a very, I will say, when you're doing this virtually in Zoom, it's a really clunky tool. So just keep that in mind. But the big thing is you created the triangle, the tube with the circles, you created that and everybody participated. Everybody was included and you guys had a good rhythm of asking questions and stepping in and saying who was going to do what. So together in 2 minutes, you accomplished, you absolutely accomplished something. So now let's think about that. Or let's talk about it. What was that experience like? How was this different when it was a collaborative effort?
go ahead.
This is Kimberly again. I think one key is that as instructions are given, everybody visualize those instructions differently. Like when I heard tube, I didn't do vertical. I did horizontal, so that just showed me, okay, well, it really just depends on how you're receiving the instructions being provided.
Yeah. And, what was the last tube you thought about? We all see something really clear in our head, but it's informed by our life experience, whatever we did most recently. And we don't realize that there's an infinite variation on what people can picture.
Another
Akia,
thing I did discover, not to cut you off, but when I was giving the instructions, of course, my right is their left is my right. So I'm looking at the screen and it's going the opposite way. And I'm like, but I mean, regardless, we could have still achieved the beak, but
Yeah,
but
another challenge of perspective.
Mm-hmm.
That's a great insight. Go to Akia, who has a hand up.
Sure. I would say the difference was from the other exercise to this exercise. When you started to provide the instructions, you let us know exactly what we were going to draw. Like you said, we're going to create an owl. And then you started describing the owl. And so when I saw this picture coming on the screen, I was thinking this was probably like the container for a tennis ball, just the way that it started coming on the screen. We had no idea that they were going to create a bird. And I think that would have made a difference because how that person just said, well, when I heard tube, I did horizontal versus vertical. And so when you think of a bird, you probably would have thought something different.
So the context is really important. The context for the details. Yeah. Great insight. Thank you. What else? I'd love to hear from a couple of the observers. What did you notice? Feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand if you rather.
There's a division of duties after the first time.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's almost some type of either ahead of time decide on roles or order of action, who's going to do what, or a method of coordinating who's going to do what. So things either don't fall through the crack or you don't have everybody duplicating efforts. Yeah. What other insights? Yeah, someone put in the chat that it took a little while to find a flow, and then they were able to coordinate better. So you can see when you bring that element of reflection into a collaborative thing, in addition to what individual needs are and individual behaviors, you get the whole group dynamic. And so if you get into that experiential learning cycle, you can do multiple rounds of this and say, okay, well, let's try it where the drawer or the visionary is going to delegate specific pieces to specific people, or let's try it where we'll spend the first few seconds giving an overview in the bigger context, and then we'll go into specifics. Or let's try it, and there's an infinite number of ways that you can try. And that's where you can start building skill and building the team, how they work together towards that larger outcome. So the game, the activity becomes a way to practice, and a really safe and low stakes way to try new things and see what happens. Yeah, DJ, I love what you said. You could see the forming, storming, norming. Yeah, in a really short amount of time. And then you can reflect on it and see how did people experience each of those stages and what could have been helpful to them. Yeah, excellent. And so a couple of let me just clear the screen here so you can see that. These are some of the reflective questions that you can do in this team development level. What would have helped the team perform better? What collaborative skills did you need to exercise? What would you do differently if you're going to do this again? And that's where you really tap into that experiential learning, where you can try and see how it goes, and try and see how it goes, and get that practice. And then what are the parallels from what happened within the context of this game and what happens in real life? So how can you take this and apply it to how people work together, to what the challenges are that you're looking to address through training and development. I'll pause there. Any other thoughts, questions, reflections on everything we've done so far?
I think, like, would it be, and I think we mentioned this, but I think this is something that I need to definitely work on, is as a visionary, there's no harm in just going with what you want, telling them exactly what you want, right? So we didn't know she wanted a bird, but she said, draw a tube. So I'm wondering, as a visionary, is it better to say, listen, this is what we want. We want an audit report. I do training, audit training. I want audit training. I want matrices to be measurable. I want at least 50 people to sign up for the training. So maybe it's better to go that route instead of saying, hey, we're going to do training. Go directly to what you want. I think in writing, they call it writing deductively. You start right with the main headline and then you provide all the details. So in our case, it would be like, we start with what the target is. This is the target. Now we need to build up. How are we going to get to that target? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there might be some groups, that maybe engineers or coders, where it's like, until you get to the specifics, they're kind of tuned out. So, it could be situationally specific. It could be different people, need different things. Some people might need going back and forth between the big picture and the details. And so it's just being aware that people are going to have different needs, and it's good to know what those are so that you can, start with the end in mind, and figure out what's the best way to take that journey for this group of people to get the success that we want to see. Another thing that comes up with this activity sometimes is, what does success look like? Is success making the most accurate representation? Is success having everybody have a role? Is success that just the page isn't blank and there's something there? Is success you beat the timer. Everybody might have a slightly different goal. And so making sure that when people are working together, they all have a similar understanding of what it is they're trying to accomplish and how they'll be measured and evaluated. That's an important thing that can come out of this as well. Other thoughts or insights? Okay. And again, if you want a copy of these slides together, these questions, just send me an email afterwards and I'll be happy to share it. I wanted to share a case study of a team that I worked with and how we used all three. If you think of the iceberg, we used all three of the different levels over the course of the session with them. This was a county health department that had 7 different units, and previously they'd been really siloed. And there had been some turnovers. There were new people who were leading some of the different teams and leading the department. And so I was working with the 16 people who led the department in each of the different teams. And they wanted to have a singular vision for leadership and culture across the department and empower each of the different leaders to bring that into their teams. And have everybody feel connected to this sense of promoting health equity, that no matter what team you were on, what programs you worked on, those were the outcomes that you were, excuse me, that they were looking to build towards, rather than, well, I'm doing this and I have this goal, but that has nothing to do with this, and any resources that go to them are not going to meet. So get rid of some of those turf issues. So over the course of 5 training sessions, is just a map of how we used games and play. Initially, it was purely team bonding. I wanted them to first trust me, and that I was using their time responsibly, that I understood what their needs were. And so we were working at how do we create this shared sense of identity and belonging for these leaders, so they all see themselves as part of something together. And then we went into team building for 2 different sessions, helping them get to know each other better and understand what are their individual strengths, and what are those strengths, how do those lend them to the department? How can they draw on each other more rather than see each other team as a competitor? How do you look for ways to share resources and to tap into other people's knowledge and build those connections and trust across the team? And then how do they communicate more clearly? People had no idea, even in the office right next door to them, they had no idea what was happening with other programs. So if somebody asked a question, they didn't know what was behind it, and it was easier to default to, oh, well, they must be trying to take our resources, or they're trying to do better than us, rather than say, you know what, these are really complementary programs and it would help us to understand each other. And so once we had established those connections and there was a greater understanding of what each person did and how each person contributed to the department, then we went into how do we get the whole department working cohesively, and looking at strategy and mindset and capacity, and looking for better ways to share resources, ways for the leaders to engage their teams in this same philosophy, and starting to bring those connections down to everybody who worked in the department. And how do they implement that themselves? So we did several different games over the course of this engagement towards very, very different outcomes in creating this whole learning and change journey for the organization. And it was really fun. They learned a lot from it. Some of the same insights that you've had of recognizing that sometimes you're saying something and you think it's really clear, and it's really clear to some people, but to other people, that's just not how they think. Looking at, there were more opportunities for better collaboration and use of resources, seeing where there's possibilities to tap into other people's advice and wisdom and create this support network. It was a really successful engagement that really centered around using play. So just to conclude with some of the best practices that I want to take questions. In using play, you want to be intentional. So first you want to think about what's the level of outcome that you're trying to get, what's the learning and takeaway and change, and how are you positioning the experiential component to get to those outcomes. And then thinking about the game itself, what are the mechanics within the game? What are the specific challenges and how do they align towards the specific learning outcomes that you're trying to get to? And I want to make sure we have time for questions, so I'll pause there. And would love to hear from you. What are you thinking about? What came up? Does this seem something that would be interesting or useful to you? Yeah, Lakeisha.
I do like a gazillion Teams calls because I'm always doing them with my chapter. So I understand the Zoom nature. I think I learned about myself, to your point, when people think, and I do believe I'm a good communicator and I can explain things well, depending on who the audience is. You know, you always try to, I won't say I will ever drop myself to somebody's level of understanding, but make sure that we both are at the same level of understanding. Not meaning that my thoughts are higher or lower than anybody else's, but I'm trying to achieve the common goal of us getting to a desired end target. So if I need to change, elevate, whatever my communication pattern to ensure that that happens, then I'm going to do that. So I think that was a very good exercise as far as even with drawing the owl. And I was like, well, this is a cute little owl, but this isn't as good as Sarah's owl. So, you know, I'm not going to put my owl out there anymore. So, like you said, understanding your own expectations of yourself and of whatever the desired outcome is and what you can bring to that. So I think was very helpful in us understanding our perspectives and working with other people's perspectives that we're not as familiar with, like we are our coworkers.
Well, thank you for that.
Mhm.
Yeah, Sarah.
Hi, so you mentioned that you could provide your slides if we requested. Instead of having 33 people send you an email, can you just drop it in the chat for us?
Actually, Sarah,
I
or Alex, we'll end up posting them on our website, and so I'll send out the link later today or tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're
Excellent
welcome.
training. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Reflections? Yeah, Deidre.
I had a question. I know sometimes when you're introducing games, people have like a hesitation. I'm not one that enjoys playing games. However, if I understand the purpose of it, and when you kind of get into it, then you forget that you're playing a game. So, what strategies do you have for getting people to buy into this game philosophy when you're dealing with serious issues or culture issues?
Yeah, that's where starting with the outcome in mind is really helpful, because you're saying this, we're trying to accomplish this type of change, or we're trying to get people to really internalize these skills. And it's not just about putting the knowledge out there. We all know that knowledge alone does not get people to change their behavior. And that's what real learning is. And so sometimes I won't use the term game or play. Sometimes I'll just talk about experiential learning. Or experiential learning activities, if there really is that resistance just to the idea of it. But showing some of the research on, how one, just starting with play and having that shared experience, and especially with colleagues, doing something together that doesn't have the high stakes of work, the benefits of that, and then being able to take that experience that's already generating some sense of positivity and connection and curiosity, and layering on the learning from that, where people are already in a positive mindset, and tapping into the experiential component. And we actually, if anyone's interested, we have a white paper that pulls together some of the research on using play for employee engagement and motivation and retention, that I can share. And one tool that I'll mention really quickly, in terms of thinking about the outcome in mind, we have this, it's a short assessment, but it gets at what are the different pressure points in a team and where is there a need for learning and change. And you hear those 9 different sort of dimensions of team culture. And so this assessment will show across the team, where do people see their strengths, where do people see their areas for opportunity, so that you can say this is a team that really feels like they're really strong in identity and belonging, but they don't feel like they have a clear sense of growth and development. So this is something that they need more development on. And then you can find a game and experience that will lend itself to that. And so if anybody's curious, I set up sorry to be advancing the slides really quickly. I want to be mindful of time. I set up a sample link here if you want to scan this QR code, and I can also paste it in the chat. But if you're curious to just see what that assessment looks like, and the questions that it asks, you can give that a try. Oh, thanks, the link is in the chat now. And that's really helpful too, because once there's a documented need, people are telling you that this is a problem. You could say, we want to do something to address it and need to go beyond traditional, PowerPoint or video-based learning, and really make sure there's the experiential piece so people get the emotional engagement in the learning and change journey. Great question. We have a couple minutes left. Any other questions, thoughts, ideas? Please, please, please reach out to me. I love talking about this. I'm so passionate about bringing more play and experiential learning all across the training and development spectrum. So would really love to hear from you, and happy to share more resources. Yes, that white paper is on the website. Let me stop sharing and I can pull that up right now, actually. We actually just put out a new white paper today, so you can see that one on there as well. There's a link to that. Questions, thoughts, ideas?
What do you
Oh,
sure.
go ahead, please. Whoever was sharing.
This is Kimberly Harrison again. Probably my last time talking today. But either way, we just had I work for Huddle IG in the audit division, and we just had a disaster fraud training event last week. And at the end of our training, what we have started to include was a collaborative game using the vehicle Kahoot. So we present the training over 2 days, and then the last leg of the training is actually very collaborative and very competitive. People can use their phones, and I mean, we've really got a lot of good engagement with it. And I just know for sure that with the climate being heavy as it is, meaning we have so many things we're worried about on the external, meaning outside of our jobs, if there's a way that we can implement the fun part in our jobs, it will actually make learning a little bit easier. So yeah. I really liked what we learned today. I'm going to have to brief my boss on this later on this afternoon. And yeah, it was good. It was good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And one of the things that we do is, my team and I, we facilitate these, but we also teach other people how to incorporate games into their learning and instructional design and their programs. We have a play facilitator certification program that is the basics on more on the iceberg and more on that pressure matrix and the assessment tool, and how do you set up a game and pick the right reflection questions so that you could think about, what does a team need in a particular moment? Where do you need the energy, or where do you need to direct the learning and the engagement, and how do you design an experience around that? So that's also on our website if anyone's interested. And it's specifically for people who are already experts in either delivering training, designing training, facilitating, coaching. Just adding that extra experiential learning component.
Thank you so much, Alex. I think we're all processing and thinking about how we're going to apply and what we're going to do with all this rich information. And so we want to do our own experiments, I'm sure. So we appreciate you sharing your learning nuggets with us today.
It was a pleasure, and hope to talk to you guys soon. Thank you.
All right. So thank you